What's up, everybody? Today, we're going to look at every single month of sales I've had since I started dropshipping. Real quick backstory. Before I started dropshipping, I was an existing eBay seller. I wasn't like full-time or anything, but I was really sick. And I got into eBay because I thought that I had no choice but to learn to earn money from home for reasons I'm not going to get into. So I was already selling on eBay, and I was finding stuff to sell, and mostly off of Craigslist. I was doing commission work with like friends and other people, so I would sell stuff for people. They would just give it to me. I would sell it, and then they would get like 70% of the profit or half of the profit, and I got the rest. So that was great because it was kind of just like drop shipping, where like you don't have to have any money really. And the great thing about commission sales, as long as you have trust, like you're a trustable person and people are willing to give you stuff for nothing at first because you haven't sold it yet, then that means that you can get into it without any money, right? Which is why a lot of people like drop shipping. And the great thing about doing commission work on eBay is that you can do that and effectively get out of, not be affected by PayPal jail, because other people will give you the items to sell, and you can just communicate that, okay, it's going to be on hold for this amount of time, and then it's going to be available, and the return period will have ended, so then you'll get your cut, right? And people are usually pretty understanding as long as they're giving you stuff that has been sitting around for a while that wasn't going to be earning them any money anyway. And in their head, they're like, well, at least now it's going to happen, right? So that is, if you are interested in dropshipping and you're based in the US or a market that eBay has, then that's a great way to start because it allows you to effectively work around PayPal jail, because you can do that for the period of PayPal jail, which is normally the first 90 days that you start actively selling. And then after that, your PayPal jail is going to go away. And then you can start dropshipping and not have to worry about like finding the money to process the orders first. And just to give you guys some assurance, I have never had any money saved up. Like this isn't good, but at the moment I have nothing saved up. All of this, like the way that I exist is through cash flow. I understand now that cash flow is actually more valuable to you than earning profit. And obviously people will argue with that, but the reality is you can change your life faster if you take advantage of like moving money around and some other stuff. And I'm not going to get too much into that because the point of this video is to show you every single month since I started. So this is almost 2.5 years of data. And keep in mind, when I started this, I didn't yet I wasn't starting with a brand new eBay account. I was starting with an eBay account that had around 700 ratings, and I was a top-rated seller. I wasn't huge, definitely wasn't huge, but I had been selling on eBay for a while, and I understood most of it. I was auctioning stuff mostly. So that being said, let's go to the very beginning. November 2015. I started posting items probably on the 4th, around right here. I had taken David Vu's course like November 1st or October 28th. I don't remember what it was. And I loved it because it was like, hey, I have an eBay account. I should be doing this. And I got obsessed. And I was manually posting items. So the results that you see here for the next 8 months are from manual posting. This is like taking 5 to 15 minutes doing optimization style listings. I did not start out bulk dropshipping. I started out doing that. And this is before like any software. So there wasn't even like inventory tracking. And I'm not saying it didn't exist back then. It did. But more people back then would pay virtual assistants to just like manually check things. There wasn't as much software available to like expedite the process. Whereas nowadays you can do anything with software, and learning to take advantage of software is huge, right? So this was my first month. I think I had my first sale on like November 8th or something. It was like 7 days after I started. And it was not in stock. It was out of stock. And then the next like 2 sales also had problems. But it showed me, hey, this can actually happen. Keep in mind, when I started dropshipping, I was still selling other things physically. So the numbers you see here aren't only from dropshipping. They're also from whatever I was also selling physically at the time. This is a very small percentage of sales and only happens for like 3 or 4 months. After that, I switched completely and I stopped doing all physical stuff. Unless I was able to get my hands on Magic the Gathering cards, because those were really easy to sell. But in general, I stopped doing physical sales and completely invested myself in dropshipping. All right? So that was November, the first month. And then we had December, and I did $1,600. In January, $4,200. So this is when dropshipping started to, I was like, okay, this is worth it. This is worth my time. I'm getting more sales. This is great. And remember, I was posting manual items. So at this point, my store had like 3, 4, maybe 500 manually posted items. And in my head, my goal was post items every day. Get to 1,000. You must change your life. This will somehow change your life. Keep going, get to 1,000. I was working as a Starbucks barista at the time, and I just kept on going, right? So February, we had 5,000. That was another increase, right? And what's important here is I started to think that, oh, that means that it's going to just continuously increase. And it's been increasing because I've posted more listings. Unfortunately, guys, as you can tell from these graphs in general, we may notice a trend with the total sales. But if you pay attention, like, look at the irregularity in when we had sales and when we didn't have sales. These periods of time, daily sales were not yet a thing. Very much so. I mean, look at this. We had a big day here and then like nothing for like 6 or 7 days, right? It's really important that you understand how sporadic a lot of this stuff is, because ultimately the only way you get stability is by finding some way to scale to a point where it's reliable. But ultimately, the sales themselves are not as reliable as you would expect, okay? So this is February 2016, and then March, and sales start dropping. And then April. All right, it was good again, good month. And then, we got to go to the next one now. So we were on April, now we're on May of 2016. But then it dropped a bunch, and this scared me, like really scared me. If you guys saw, the previous month and the month before that, we had like 5,000, 4,000, right? And in my head, I'm posting more and more optimizing listings, keeping roughly the same pace of posting listings. So therefore, I should keep getting more sales at roughly the same pace. That's what I thought at the time. But it's not that simple, unfortunately. And my sales tanked. Like, I got half the sales of the previous month in this month. And I started doubting it. I started wondering, like, okay, maybe I can't do this. What do I do? I've put so much time. What do I do? I started having doubt, right? And then the next month, again, it was smaller, not a good month, half the size of sales from the previous month. But again, this store is tiny. And keep in mind, a lot of my sales were from repeat selling items or individual situations that just got lucky. Like one of these months, I sold a $1,000 item, and it was $1,400. So imagine if that was this month, right? Because if that one situation hadn't have happened, then I would have dropped from 5,000 to 2,600 to 1,000, even though I was making more and more listings, right? So in my head, that shouldn't be able to happen. So therefore, that was a turning point for me, because it's when I understood that things aren't as simple as I think they are. It's not, the correlations aren't that simple, right? All right, so then we get to July, and sales start going up a little bit here, but I still started to be pretty doubtful. And this is the month that I started bulk drop shipping. I'd had these doubts about whether optimization was right for me and if I wanted to continue doing it, because I hadn't yet gotten into virtual assistants, and I was so hesitant to get into software, because in my head I was like, no, it's better manually, handcrafted, where I can pay attention to all the details and all that kind of stuff. But really, like, I should have gotten into software earlier, because this is the month that I started using Hydra Lister. So I started using it to individually post items, and it sped that process up a bunch. But then one day, I clicked batch mode, and I saw that you could put a list of URLs of any size into this program and click enter, and it would post them for you. That moment was a change of life event, because that represents the point where I started fixating on this concept of bulk dropshipping, because I knew, okay, an eBay account's limits can grow exponentially. They can grow by a set percentage every month. As long as you keep getting sales, then you can go from like 100 items to 1 million items in a relatively short amount of time, just because of the nature of exponential growth, right? Like nowadays on my account, if I get one limit increase, that's the same additional items I can post as the first 2.5 years of getting limit increases on my account. That's just how exponential growth works, right? So the trick is, okay, but how do I get my income to follow? How do I get my income to be parallel to the size of my account? Because with optimization, I have to post all of these listings. I'm going to get to a point where I run out of time. I can't have more than 24 hours a day, right? I can't, right? And so you can work around that with virtual assistants, obviously, but you still get to a point where it's like, okay, it's hard to create a 200,000 item store that's optimized. So once your account gets so big that you can post millions of items, how do you keep up with that account growth? How do you keep maximizing your account with optimization? And the reality is, no matter how good, no matter how many virtual assistants you have, with optimization, you get to a point where you can't do it anymore. Or not that you can't do it anymore. And I'm not saying you don't earn money. I'm just saying that there isn't as strong of a parallel to account size to money as there is with bulk. And that's when all of those thoughts started to happen. And at some point during this month, I decided that I was just going to start experimenting with bulk. And I actually deleted the store that I had created for 7 months straight. Over the next 30 days, I took down all of those listings and replaced them with bulk format listings and started experimenting with that. And that was in July of 2016. So next month, my sales like doubled, which was pretty awesome. And again, remember that the reason I got into bulk was because at this point, my eBay account had gotten big enough that it wasn't like, oh, I can only post 1,000 items, so I got to post 1,000. It was like, I can't keep up with the eBay account growth. I can't keep posting more items. If I could do that, it was just more exciting. I knew that something good would come out of that in the future if I could learn to do it properly, right? So that's what led to my interest in bulk, was the fact that I wasn't able to keep up with my eBay account growth, and I wanted to post more and more and more items and not have to spend all the time doing it. So being able to suddenly post thousands of items in the time that I would post 50 or 100 items became incredibly appealing to me, right? Okay, so August, 8,400. I wish I had the number of exact listings I had posted in these periods. Unfortunately, I don't. That would make all this much more useful, but my main goal with this video is to give you guys access to 2.5 years of sales so you can understand what I went through since the beginning and understand that you inevitably will get to a point where data makes you come to conclusions that make you feel like you should give up. The reality is everybody gets to that point and most people leave. The nature of e-commerce guarantees you will be exposed to it. I want to make this video so when you get to that point, you won't leave. You'll understand it's part of the game and stick with it and figure out how to get results, okay? All right. And then September, roughly the same as August. October, 10,000. This is fourth quarter benefits, right? At this point, that I'm increasing the size of my store as my account gets bigger. So I'm going to get more sales because of that. But also, my listings have been up longer at this point, right? So now we're going to go to November. All right, 13K. These are bigger numbers than I've ever done at this point, right? I had never gotten past 8, and then it was 9, and then 11, and 13, okay? This is fourth quarter. So honestly, October, November, and then first half of December are the best time of the year. And then we have December. Oh, 1 second, sorry. 13,000 or 12,000. January, 16,000. All right. And here we're at another turning point in my life. Okay, I should have talked about that actually. So far, I had been experimenting. I mean, by December, I'd been experimenting with bulk posting. But I wasn't comfortable completely maxing my account. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to pay the insertion fees, and I was scared. I was holding myself back. I was unwilling to take certain risks because I wasn't yet confident. Then, on about December 20th, right here, my girlfriend at the time broke up with me. And, well, she didn't break up with me. She just asked for space and then never told me another word about it after that. It was a breakup, obviously, but it took me a couple months to realize that. And it was not a good time in my life. I had a lot of emotion. So I poured that into stuff. And one of the things I was pouring that into was drop shipping. At this point, I was just like, fuck it. I'm tired of being judged. I'm tired of having a lifestyle where I'm not in control of stuff. And like I was in a very fuck it kind of mood. And I was like, you know what? This drop shipping stuff, this bulk thing is the most likely thing to change my life. And I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to start maxing my account from now on and posting as many items as I possibly can. So then we have January 2017. And this is the month that I really started. I would consider myself a bulk dropshipper at this point. I had dropped all optimization from my business. I had gotten rid of all my optimized listings. And I was regularly trying to understand how to make huge lists of items. Because at the beginning of this, bulk to me meant 1,000 items. Posting 1,000 items, like, holy crap. Whereas now, posting 1,000 items, I could do that in like 10 minutes. 10, 15 minutes if I just wanted to post 1,000 items for the hell of it, right? So it doesn't mean the same thing it means to me now. Bulk to me now means operating at 200,000 items. Whereas in the past, it was like 10,000, 20,000. Those are big numbers to get to because I was used to having my own eBay auctions. So having 100 auctions at once, like that was a lot, right? Getting into these numbers of 1,000, 2,000, 100,000, like geez, it was out of my brain at the time. So then we go into February, and this is my first month where I do more than 20K, which is like, okay, that's a pretty significant increase. This is when I was bought on bulk. I was like, all right, even if I fuck stuff up and everything goes wrong, you know, I've seen such obvious results immediately that I know something can be done with this because that's a big difference between optimization and bulk. With optimization, it's hard to launch an optimization format business and then like day 4 be getting loads of sales. Whereas with a bulk style dropshipping business, you can literally do that. As it's all about account size and the reliability of your sources. As long as you know you can get the items regularly, then like, for example, I could take any eBay account that's able to post a bunch of items and I could post a log of items to it and it will produce this level of sales, like 20, 30,000 sales within like 1 to 2 weeks. It happens very quickly. Whereas with optimization, you have to continuously post items and you build up to that over time. If you have a big team of virtual assistants, then yes, you can get those results at that speed, but you can do it with bulk with only one person. The thing is, at the time, I hadn't yet learned how to maximize the chance of the items in the list selling and how to minimize the problematic items, right? So all of my money was going towards insertion fees. And let's keep going. All right, so then March, 30,000. Again, a big, big increase. And again, this point, we're seeing these big increases because I'm consistently getting limit increases. And then I'm able to post an exponentially larger amount of items directly correlating to my limit increases that I'm getting, okay? That's why we're seeing such large growth. Like, and I'm not saying you can't grow. Obviously, you can sell way more than this. I'm not saying I'm the best by any means. But it is like to get like 20 to 50% growth every month, that if you had a set amount of items would be very, very unlikely. It wouldn't happen, right? But the reason that's happening, and I want you to understand this, is that the store is becoming bigger and bigger as time progresses. We are not looking at charts of a static store that is the same throughout the year. You cannot assume seasonality based off of these charts, okay? Just because I'm showing that I had less sales in December, more sales in January, more sales in February, more sales in March, doesn't mean that means that March is the best month, okay? It's really important that you understand that, all right? Okay, so March, 30K, right? And then April, 38K. Like, geez, it just kept going up, obviously, because I kept posting items. But this is where I started to make my first mistake, my first big mistake with bulk. And that was that I had no system to end my listing. So at this point, I'd started doing most of my bulk drop shipping in January. But all of the listings were still, the January listings at this point were getting 4 months old. And that's important to keep in mind. Okay? So we're at April 2017. Now, we go to May. And May, this is my sales-wise, technically, sales-wise, this is my best month of all time. It's important here to understand sales does not necessarily correlate to profit. Back then, when I was doing this, I was just posting search results of items. I had a little bit of a system in order to figure out what items to post, but it was nowhere near as refined as it is now. I had no pricing format that I was targeting. I was posting all items except really cheap items. So I could get like $1,000 in sales a day, but in a lot of situations, that would actually only be 4 or 5 sales. All right? Because what you're going to see soon is that the numbers all start going down. And the reason for this is that I shifted my focus. I started understanding, all right, the bulk thing is definitely viable, but I have a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues that I have to deal with. How can I get rid of these? And also, this hadn't yet happened, but PayPal is about to place a rolling reserve on my eBay account. At this point, in May, they place a withholding limit on my eBay account because the growth happened, right? A withholding limit means that if I receive more than $40,000 per month, I do not receive the additional stuff instantly. It's kind of like, okay, you're not in PayPal jail, but the second you earn more than this amount per month, then you will be in PayPal jail. And this kind of served as a deterrent for me because I wasn't in the position to front the money. So I couldn't continue to keep posting as many items as my account limits were growing, okay? So, keeping that in mind, we'll continue. So now we have a big drop. We go down to 27,000 from 40,000, okay? Also, keep in mind, Grind Camp is about to happen. And that was a big event in my life. And it affects my eBay sales. In this, I'm telling you everything that had something to do with my eBay sales, okay? So 27,000 in June. At this point, I've started to transition and experiment with posting cheaper items. I went through a very short phase where I was trying to post more expensive items because I was like, oh, there's less competition with $1,000 item, $2,000 items. But ultimately what I found was that I was getting really frustrated having to deal with the returns of these really, really expensive items because I could be fine. I could have $1,100 in my PayPal account, and then $1,000 item has an issue, and then suddenly all that money's on hold, and I can't process the orders because I wasn't expecting that, and I haven't gotten the refund back from the original. You know, you have to have a much more resilient cash flow in order to handle those expensive items. So my interest in pursuing those expensive items pushed me to then think of it the opposite way and be like, okay, maybe the better thing to do is to learn how to sell cheaper items. And so this month represents the month that I transitioned away from expensive items and into cheaper items, which is one of the reasons that there's such an intense drop, okay? And then July. All right, this is Grind Camp. So at this point, I'm still a barista at Starbucks. I'm trying to figure out how to get this drop shipping stuff to grow. I know it's possible. I know it's doable, but there's a lot more I need to do. But I'm at a point where I'm like, man, if I could just work on my life all day instead of making coffee, I would be okay. At that point, I had realized that, right? So Mark Augustine, who runs a YouTube channel, No Bullshit Dropshipping, he hosted an event called Grind Camp. And we did a Skype call like in June for the first time or something like that, or maybe, and he mentioned the event, and I didn't think much of it. But then I saw a video about it and started to comprehend how much it would change my life if I was able to expose myself to people who earned money from a laptop, and to look these people in the eye so that my soul, my deeper self, know with absolute certainty those people already exist. It's not a matter of if it can be done. It's a matter of will I do it, right? I knew that if I could get myself in that environment, I would be able to change my life drastically, right? So, Grind Camp started on the 1st. I found myself June 29th, and my coworker had decided that he was going to take off 2 weeks in the middle of July, and I could go to Grind Camp then. Because keep in mind, I'm a barista at this time. I have a schedule, right? I can't just disappear for 2 weeks. But my friend happened to be off and offered to work all of my shifts for that 2-week period. But now we get into the whole, okay, I haven't saved money up, right? It costs me, and also, I don't have a laptop. At that point, I had a desktop that I was doing all the work on. I didn't have a laptop. How was I going to live in Nicaragua for 2 weeks and run my business? Obviously, I had to have a laptop. Okay, how was I going to get to Nicaragua? Because I knew if I get there, I'll learn information that's going to change my life, no matter what else happens. I knew that was a certainty. So I was like, all right, you know what? Instead of paying my eBay bills, I'm going to use that money to get myself to Nicaragua. Because even if something happens, I'm going to have the information necessary to change my life. And I'm going to be in a location where the cost of living is low, so I don't need to be a barista anymore, and I'm more likely to further my eBay career, right? So Grind Camp happens, and that is a whole freaking other video, right? Jesus, like, if you don't know about that, which I'm not going to get too much into it, but that was a thing. So most of my time now is no longer focused on growing my eBay store. I'm trying to pay attention to other people's lifestyles and their personalities and understand the industries that they come from. And I'm focused on making videos for the Grind Camp YouTube channel for a 2-week period. At the end of July, I'm about to go back and I have a conversation with Mark. And that conversation led to me deciding that it was worth me moving to Nicaragua. Okay? So I'm still doing the bulk stuff. And in August of 2017, I now live in Nicaragua. And I was participating in the grind space thing and yada yada. Then remember that I paid for everything with borrowed money. Instead of paying my insertion fee bill, I paid for those tickets and the laptop. Okay? So now my account's behind at this point because the bill's due at this point. So then we get into the next month, September. Sales are pretty consistent at this point, right? We're not having as much variation. And again, at this point, I'm no longer able to grow my account correlating to my account limits because I'm concerned about my withholding limit on PayPal, okay? And in September, actually, no, I think it was in August when I was at Grind Camp, my withholding limit gets removed and a rolling reserve gets placed on my PayPal account. So now 5% of all sales is put on hold for 90 days. All right? That's important to understand. So at this point, money, not only am I behind on my eBay bill, but there's also an accumulating amount of money in my PayPal account that could pay the bill off, but is unable to be used for 90 days. Okay? So then we get to September. And at this point, I'm 30 days behind. And I was in San Juan, and then in Managua, and then at Grind Space. And then towards the end of September / early October, I had a falling out with Mark. And so I left Grind Space. And I ended up finding a place to live in Nicaragua. So I was still in Nicaragua. But I wasn't around a bunch of entrepreneurs anymore. But I'd been exposed to so much information, and I had the course published and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine. I just have to take advantage of my free time and focus on what makes me flourish. And that's ultimately why I left Grindspace, because it was a source of great, amazing information. But the environment was not the kind of environment that nurtures growth. It's the kind of environment that's a bit more hectic than that and tries to force growth, which works in some situations. But for me as an individual, that directly violates how I'm able to get exponential amounts of work done in the long run, right? So there was other stuff I could get into, but it's not really that important. The point is that you have to remember that I knew that information would change my life, and I paid my eBay bill to get that information. I viewed it as like a college education or something, right? I knew if I could get the information, I'll figure it out. So then, towards the end of October, a suspension gets placed on my eBay account because I'm behind on my bill, right? So I've been paying it off, but I haven't been able to pay it off completely. So I keep getting further behind. So at this point, eBay places a suspension on my account until the bill is paid. And what the suspension does is it means that I cannot list any more items. So at this point, we're going to get to November of 2017. And the reason that it's so low is because day one of the suspension, I can no longer post items. Oh, that's fine. I just can't post more items, right? My existing items still can sell. Well, yeah, until they go to renew. Because when your account's suspended, not only can you not post new items, but your existing items cannot be reposted for the next good till cancel period. So, on the renew date, every one of your listings ends instead of getting renewed. This is something I refer to as bleeding on eBay, and that's when you have some kind of account limitation placed on you, or your account limits had a glitch and then you're overdoing your account limits. You'll go through a process I refer to as bleeding, and bleeding is when your account has more items posted than it's allowed to, and for whatever reason, it's unable to post new items. So because of that, your existing items do not renew, and they get taken down every time they go to renew. So the thing was placed on October 4th. So by November 4th, that account was gone. And I was at a really, really low point at this point because I had gotten really close to Mark and Carlos and then felt really, really, really betrayed. And I felt really lonely. I was in this foreign country. I didn't speak the language. I felt like on one hand, I knew that this is the lifestyle I wanted. This is what's gonna make me into the person I want to be. But at the same time, I was so fucking scared. Holy shit, I was terrified. Especially once my account actually got shut down. Even though I had made decisions to get myself into that situation, right? But ultimately, at this point, I knew I was going to be okay. Because during Grind Camp, I had unleashed my course, finally. And that was bringing me $500-$600 a month, which is enough to get along in Nicaragua. My mother was also sending me $400 ever since I got sick. I was really, really sick, like I said, and I had to quit my job because I couldn't do it anymore, and long story. But ever since then, my mother had given me financial support, and that has acted as a huge catalyst in my life. And nowadays, all of that support gets rerouted, right? I may get $400 from my mother, but I donate $220 worth of it and have other things that money kind of goes into. So I'm no longer directly necessarily benefiting from it, but I'm able to ease other people's burdens because of that support that my mother gave me that changed my life in the past, right? So because of my mother's support and because of the course, and also at this point, I was getting affiliate money and stuff as well. I had over $1,000 of income per month. And in Nicaragua, that's enough to live well. So even though the store had gotten taken down, the act of creating the store had established other sources of income in my life that protected me when the store was taken down. And ultimately, 3 weeks later, I got the bill paid off because I realized, and this is really stupid, so when I was working at Starbucks, I'd been putting money aside into an account out of every paycheck. And I'd made that decision on a whim when I first started working at Starbucks. And so I was a barista for 4 years, and I had forgotten that I had that money. So I got an email from them on like November 14th or something, I remember. And I was like, wait a second. I owe eBay like $7,000. And I have $4,000, enough to get me on time with eBay. And I've had that money this whole time. I felt so stupid, but also so blessed. So I just used that. I used that money to pay off my bill. And then everything. I also started getting into Kabbage business loans at this point, and then everything was groovy. So then we have December. And at this point, I'm still very hesitant about bulk. I haven't yet regained my confidence in it. I was really, really insecure. Mark had talked a lot of shit. Because, I mean, that's kind of like, Mark's channel has a lot of information, but he talks a lot of shit. That's how he is. It's who he is as a person, you know? And that is fine in a lot of dynamics, but when you run a YouTube channel, especially like Mark and I, we create similar content, have a similar audience. Yeah, his audience is it's usually between 2 and 3 times the size of mine. So he was spouting bullshit about me on YouTube. He was acting like he had found, like, that he had sat down with me and done this kind of stuff, looked at my numbers, asked me questions, and understood that things. And he never did that. He never had those conversations with me. And he was just telling people that I was lying and telling people that I was losing money and that I was a fraud. And it just was hard because I was in this country, and I'd originally gone there because I trusted him. And I realize now I really had put him on a pedestal. And I didn't understand the consequences of the kind of way he is, right? And look, like, I like Mark's YouTube channel, and I'm really glad that I met Mark, but nobody's perfect, and some people can be quite venomous, let's just say, okay? But anyway, my point is, I got into this situation. If you look at these, this is a point where it's like, okay, you could end it all. You could just give up, right? But this is the turning point, because I know from my own experience, like I've seen death. My hero died when I was a kid. My dad died when I was 12, and I idolized my dad. I knew very, very well that life has a way of falling apart before it comes together, okay? And a lot of those strengths allowed me to understand that I'm still in a good situation. So even though there were a bunch of people talking shit about me on YouTube, and I was really insecure, and I was in this foreign country and all that kind of stuff, I knew that, yeah, it's hard, but I'm living an interesting, exciting life, and I love it. So it was all worth it to me, right? And I was still kind of insecure about bulk. I wasn't sure. All of this stuff had kind of gotten to my head. I was like, maybe these people are right. Maybe I'm just full of shit. Maybe I'm lying. I don't even know anymore. I was so lost, right? So I'm like, all right, instead of just going back into bulk, I'm just going to do a smaller format bulk store with 10,000 items instead of 50 or 100,000, right? And so I start experimenting with that, and I'm like, all right, I do earn money from this. I've been earning money from this. It's not that I haven't earned money. Like, it's not true that I didn't earn money. The reality is I had a habit of spending money I hadn't earned yet, right? That's how I was able to get into Nicaragua in the first place. And this is something that I told everybody there. I was like, I went into debt coming here. Like, I don't have the resources that any of you guys have. I'm not established, but I can get the information. So I knew it was going to change my life, right? But enough about that. December was a rough month. I wasn't doing so great then. But then January comes. All right. Look at that. So we keep going, and I'm still like, all right, at this point, you know what? People are stupid. Fuck all the hate. I realized that I'm just being insecure, and that I really was onto something, and that I should just trust my gut, and I should stop listening to all of the bullshit that people say online, because I don't want to live the lives that most people live. I want to live my own life. I want to be different than people. So you got to do things that most people don't agree with. That's how you do it, right? So if people are agreeing with everything you're doing, I mean, you maybe you're lucky and you have a bunch of great support, but that's probably unlikely, right? So at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back into bulk. And I decide to just go, okay, I'm going to experiment with 10,000 in December, and I did that, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to launch Operation Z, running a 100,000 item store, because I'd never done that before. So I launched that on January 16th, and then that's where all of those sales go. And then at this point, in February of 2018, we have operation of what I consider modern bulk, because now I'm no longer posting items just randomly. I'm targeting smaller price ranges, right? So you may think, Jack, like you showed us a month where you had 40,000 in sales earlier, and you said that was your best month in sales. And it is, that was my best month in sales, but it was not my best month in profit. Understand that back then, my average item price was like $100 or $120. And I was having a lot of problems with the cash flow issues and PayPal holds and that kind of thing. Whereas now we have almost $30,000 in sales, and our average item price has gone down to $40. So that means that I was getting way, way more sales with this model. I just wasn't doing more in dollars. But when it comes to the sales themselves, I was getting way more of them. They were more profitable because I was using like $10, $20 items and marking them up higher, because I understand that you can use 100% markup on a $10 item. It's much harder to use 100% markup on a $100 item. Like, it's just much harder, right? Because you get into a $200 purchase. Most people are willing to spend 20 or $40, and if it's a little bit less to them, it's just that number 100 is it's a big number to a lot of people, right? So my point is that this February 2018 is the month that I consider, okay, this is when I truly understood, without doubt, that bulk is viable. Completely viable. It's just a matter of learning to remove the listings that are going to produce problems and aren't going to produce sales from a big list. And not only that, but now in February, I also understood that listings had to have a lifespan. And so you can actually see here that there's a recurring theme, right? Okay, we started posting here, January 16th. Then look here, February 16th. There's like no sales. That's because we started the posting process. So like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50, 100,000 items, right? Something like that. So then sales are regular. And then we wipe the store and restart the whole process again. So I just post the same list of items that I posted previously. Okay, and that's what causes that dip there. And so I did that twice. And then I was like, all right, I need to experiment more with these listing life cycle. I need to understand, I've established that you have to have an end date, at least, or at most 90 days, but is 30 best, or is 60 best, or is 90 best? What is best for me as a bulk dropshipper? And so this is with 30. And what I feel with 30 is you could do 30 if you have a tool that enables you to post all of your items, your 100,000 item store, within 24 or 48 hours. Unfortunately, I was unable to do that. So it would take about a week for me to operate at full capacity, as in the point where all my items are now posted and I'm not posting any more items. So if you were able to do that in a day or less, then maybe you might be able to do a 30-day cycle. But because it takes so long to post the items, ultimately, I think that a 60 or 90-day period is best with bulk. And I'm erring on 60. Because you have to understand that, yeah, if you leave items up, they're going to be more likely to sell. But you shouldn't leave you should have such an innate understanding of everything that you're able to recreate events and produce the sales and understand exactly how it happens and do it regularly and with routine, right? If you focus on reiterating over and over and over again, you're going to get to that point much faster than if you focus on just the size of your store, because the number of items you have posted is almost irrelevant unless you also know how recently those items have been posted. I could have a 20,000 item store that was posted 20 years ago, and it would be performing like a 100,000 item store, right? It's important to keep all that in mind. The size of store metric is useless without also knowing how many listings have been posted within the past month, within the past 60 days, within the past 90? How old are the listings? Once a listing gets past a certain amount of time, it does become stagnant. That is a real thing. If you are having a 10,000 item store, you shouldn't be taking your listings down, but a listing without a sale should never go more than 90 days because you're paying insertion fees, and ultimately, you could just restart the process by just manually reposting the item, and then that increases the chance it's going to sell because it gets put in a newly listed feed and other stuff, right? You'll find that having the same list of items, you can repost them, and different stuff happens from that same list of items. It's not about having the perfect item. It's about having the right item in the right place at the right time, under the right condition, okay? So March 2018. Then we get, that's it. All right, so this is now. And keep in mind, this is all before the enterprise store update. And man, that's a big one. But I think we've rambled on long enough. I've showed you all of this. So I hope this was helpful. I want to really show you, this is what it was like for me, getting from a point where I was struggling and I was working as a barista and I wanted more freedom and more control over my life to a point where I can now, I'm not wealthy, I'm not rich, like I don't even have a car, but I'm able to do whatever I want. I can cook anything that I want. I can eat anything that I want. I can go out with friends and have a beer anytime that I want. I can pursue any interest that I want. I can spend all day working on YouTube videos if I want to. I could spend all day working on a course. I could spend all day watching an anime that I've really gotten into. Let me tell you something about if that's a lifestyle that you want, you can't focus on the income. That is a mistake that most people make. What you have to focus on is your habits. It's much better to do something every day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, than it is to do something for 8 hours every day for 2 months and then give up, or even for a year and give up. Because if you give up, it stops mattering. But if you do something every day, that's how you change things. If you can change your lifestyle, you can do it. It's definitely doable. And you don't even need to get rich to do it. You just have to be willing to identify what matters to you in life and what isn't important to you. And trim out the things that shouldn't be in your life because they're not bringing you change. They're not bringing you positivity. They're not encouraging you. They're not bringing good things into your life. So why should they be there? They shouldn't, right? All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Now I'm going to let this end screen do its thing. Ciao.